Today. First of all, we've been going through the weather that I can't believe, the snowstorms and the lousy humid conditions, but I did manage to get 3 nice coats of clear on this, and anytime I put dope on anything, I always like to check, make sure I haven't lost any of that integrity. Now, one of the things I'm going to do with this, I'm going to just lightly, very lightly sand this with 400 or 500 sandpaper, and not changing the shape, just fuzzing it down, just to get the fuzz off, because this is really punk wood, and the softer the wood is, more little hairs and fuzz seem to come to the top. Once I get that done, this will be ready for tissuing. The only problem is we're in the middle of, I don't even know how to describe this weather, it's just the worst weather I've ever seen. And I really can't do this in the house realistically, so I'm gonna have to tough it out like an Eskimo out in that garage, I think. Little things that have helped me is I always try to get these old towels so that from this point on, while I'm working on a flat surface, I'm working on a towel or a pad of some kind. I'm not working, when you go to work on a hard edge, you almost always, I do anyway, ding it all up. So the first thing is I want to prep the table or prep the area where I'm going to do the sanding, because from this point on, the part is going to get very delicate. I'm also, because of the way this trailing edge worked out, and we're down to probably a 32nd of an inch here, I'm going to double tissue this piece up and this piece down. So this'll grab this with 2 layers of silk span. And believe me, the silk span adds a lot of strength. And one of the things, I just got a phone call yesterday from somebody that asked, do you tissue, now this is a take-apart frame, but do you tissue the ring before you put it in the body? And I said, wow, you know, I've got that on every video I've ever made. But the reason is, now this is a take-apart plane, we're really going to tissue it in one piece, but if this were going to be a plane that was glued into the body, I would tissue this side up to here, this side up to here, so that in the middle it was double. But because we're going to wind up putting bolts in here, boy, these tails are strong. If you've never built one of these, this is just one of those eye-opening things. When you do it, you say, wow, how can it be that strong? Anyway, it's time to spend 45 minutes or an hour. I'm just going to dust sand this, most of all, get all the edges off, detail it out, and then prepare to go out into Nome, Alaska to tissue it. Now, a lot of people at this point in time, especially when I've had people over at the shop here and that they're in a rush, they kind of skip some of these steps. And one of the steps I like to really pay attention to is every time I sand a part, see, this is a piece of a motor mount. Bob Martens made these up, and they hold a corner. So I get nice corners on the hinge pockets. And having a couple of these little sanding tools is really a nice advantage at this point in time. Because if you don't get rid of all these little corners and edges now, also this edge here, I don't want any really razor edges. I want a very mild radius on all the parts. I got a funny little story while I'm sanding here. And by the way, this is 400. I just want to dust. And most important is where there are joints. And again, this is one of the steps it's real easy to skip. Funny story, Paul Walker had sent me a little letter, some information on it, pertaining to his Navy Lancaster project. I had sent him some video at a World Championship. And one of the things at the end of it, he said, say hello to Peeps. So I go over to Peeps' cage, So, hey, Pete, Paul Walker said hello, and Pete says, Paul Walker? Who the hell is Paul Walker? Peeps! You don't get any respect in his hobby. It's amazing. Anyway, this is one of the things right here. Edges. It's a lot of little details, but before the tissue goes on, if these edges aren't dressed off, then you wind up cutting right through the tissue. One other story I remember. There's somebody in the shop here that I was trying to help him get this part of the finish, and we were getting ready to tissue. And I went down to the store to pick up a pizza, and I came back, and of course I won't mention any names here, but because they'll get even. What he had done is sanded off all the dope, and we're back down to raw wood. Well, that didn't really do a whole lot of good. So at this point, the trick is just to dust it, but not sand it. And there's a very fine line between taking too much off and not taking enough off. Of course, all the edges, radius, most important, all the hinge pockets. But it's not real time consuming. But if you skip this step, there's always spots where you go right through the tissue. And I'm really not looking forward to going out in that garage. It's pouring rain right now, as if we didn't have enough weather problems. We're about ready to make the big trip to Iceland here. This is the part of modeling in Jersey in the winter that I don't really enjoy. Always a real challenge working in this really cold weather. See one breath out here. Cut the tissue, just like doing a wing. Cut the tissue ahead of time. I'm going to wet everything with Windex rather than water. It'll just keep the penetration down to a minimum. I've got the dope mixed. And we're just waiting here. Waiting for my fingers to thaw out. Now the easiest way that I've ever found to get a nice, even in cold weather, a nice, relatively wrinkle-free tissue job. Just damp silk span, not wet, just damp. I'm working on a bed sheet that's got some padding on it, and that seems to be a little bit of a help at times. Now, if you're working in warm weather, you really have to go a lot faster than I do, because in this temperature, sometimes the dope doesn't even dry, 4 or 5 hours. You have plenty of working time. In warm weather, you've got to really move along. Or you can add some retarder. That'll slow down the drying some anyway. Of course, there's advantages of doing it in cold weather like this. The advantage is you get real good chemical adhesion because the stuff takes so long to dry. And this will probably sit out here the majority of the day. Again, my old technique, and I won't put too much of this on video because we've done this enough times. I like to flood it with dope. And this is roughly 50-50. And my bare hands, press it right down until it picks up the dope from underneath it. Give it a little bit of time to dry, and in our case that might be 4 hours. And then after it's dry, I can trim the edges off. Up by the hinges here. Trying to get a little bit of extra material in there. Again, it's good if, and because it's so cold, we have plenty of time. We're under no time window here. Once the tissue is dry enough on one side, then it's not going to stick to the I'm getting a cold from being out here. Once that tissue is dry on one side, I don't like to let it sit for 2 hours. Just check that I haven't missed a spot here. Now it's done on one side. I've trimmed it off. I try to go right over to the other side. Even though these parts are so stable, they don't tend to warp like a rib wing would. there's still no point in taking a chance. And it's always better if, anytime you do one side, to flip it right over and do the other side. And you'll notice that on some types of construction, typically some of the tail constructions, that they're very flimsy until you've got the tissue on. What will happen, as soon as you wet one side, it'll turn into a banana. I always use the method of just pressing it down with my bare hand. Get plenty of dope on there. Another mistake you can make is trying to get very little dope on at this time, or trying at this point in time to save weight. This is not a good time. You want to get some good bond going on here. You want the dope that's on the top to go down into the dope that's already on the wood that's dry and make a chemical bond. And I don't know any better way than just to press it down. I mean, I've tried a couple of times doing this with rubber gloves. I know there's people that can work, and I'm trying to do more and more work like with M600 with rubber gloves, but sometimes there's just no substitute for being able to do this. Now, and the reason I want to trim this right away, I want to see that it's not twisted one way or the other. It's a little bit easier if you just wait 5 minutes, say, until it starts to dry, and then you can peel this off. And when I do that stab, I want to wrap that tissue around the front double, just as a little safety thing. This, by the way, I think is the lightest tail we've ever made. But that's the whole point. This stuff evolves over year after year. I don't know if you've seen that tail video. I mean, years ago we used to make these tails. They were a lot heavier, prone to warp, difficult to make. It would take a tremendous amount of time to make a tail. You'd never think it'd take almost as much time as making a wing. It really was like a nobler tail where there's a lot of carving and sanding. Just time consuming. Now the last little thing. Still straight in every dimension. Now another thing I always get calls about regarding Brodak dope, there are people that, and this is funny, it really isn't funny, but they'll call up and say, gee, it's 50 degrees, can I use Brodak dope? I say, gee, I don't know. Actually, when it's cold like this, you know, I guess we're like Eskimos in some way. You have to adapt, or else you'd never get a model built. So working in the cold, except for the fact that it's a little bit uncomfortable. I remember when I was showing Mike the first time we were doing a tissue job, I was showing him how I did it. And he had done a lot of tissue jobs and always tried pressing the tissue down with a brush instead of his bare hand. Hey, you get a wrinkle in it? Gone. And what I want to try to do is wrap the leading edge around a little bit more than halfway and wrap the trailing edge around a little more than halfway so that I have, again, double tissue in those hinge pockets. But that's, if you've ever taken the tape off a plane and pulled up the tissue, this is probably one of the reasons if you don't get a good bond at this point. Now what I want to do is I want to leave a little extra up on the leading edge. Maybe another 1/4 inch or so. Hey, I heard from Frank McMillan today. Another little interesting bit of information. I don't know if anybody's interested in this, but we weren't sure in F2B if you were going to be able to use a larger than 65 displacement, and the limit in F2B is 0.90. So one of the problems is the 91 Saito will not be, is 0.1 oversized. Unless I can write to Saito and have them make me a new box lid or something. But what that'll mean is, and it's I guess in the long run, we're going to be trying all the engines in here, including that laser. Very excited about that laser. But you can imagine trying to break an engine in this temperature, how miserable it would be. Anyway, the next project, once this tail has finished drying on it, we're going to try to lay up another fuselage. We've been doing a lot of little research on that with the Haloxy 68. I want to do the same thing on the trailing edge here. I'm not even going to worry about the tips right now. In fact, what I can do is just bring it around. Our first fuselage was not a roaring success, but that's never deterred me at all. So what I want to do is, I wanted to show this on the video, I want to bring this around. And what I want to do is I want to trim this, because I want double tissue on these areas. Another thing I never really appreciate when Mike is here, and you have two people, one person to hold these things, how much more convenient it is than when you have to basically tough it out like this. But I hope this is going to help people realize cold weather shouldn't deter you. It's not your first choice, but if you have no choice, if you live in Minnesota or something, what choice do you have? Well, I won't bother putting on tape because it'll just be a waste of time. When I do this side, I'm going to wrap this side around also. Well, the next thing, we get this up by the heating vent. This has been drying out in the garage for a day. We're up by the heating vent. We've got some interesting other things to do besides work on this tail, so we'll have some time to let it dry out. And it's always good to give it an extra day if you can. If you can give it that extra day up by the heating vent, when we go to sand this, it'll just sand beautifully. That's one of the most common mistakes, is people, they put some dope on something and then, the next day right away, or the next day, even sooner, they want to run out and sand away at it. If you can give it an extra day, boy, makes all the difference in the world. Well, while that dope is drying, Joe Adamusco is up here in the pouring rain, the snow that's turned to rain, the rain that's turned... What is it, snowing down by Philly? Or?
It's sleeting now. The highway's iced over, so you got to work.
Oh, yeah. Now what we're going to do, he has a retrofit on here. This has a 72 in it. We're all set to go. What we're going to do, we're going to see if it's going to be a very easy fit. We're going to pull it all apart on camera so you can get an idea if the laser fits in here, number one. And some of the other little intricacies. Boy, that fit in there like a glove. My God, that looks great. That is super. Because, of course, we're going to be trying to come up with some ideas for the Typhoon.
Vents here. I know that these engines like to run with muffler pressure. This is my uniflow vent, but I have it pointed down so I can make this nice little connection
right. That's a good idea.
To the uniflow. And then the reason this tank overflow vent is canted backwards is so that, when you go to screw on your muffler, that fitting, I didn't have to change it. I just had to get it back out of the way enough so that when I rotate that, what do you think with the valve covers protruding from the bottom of that?
That's about as sanitary a look as I've ever seen. It doesn't get any more sanitary than that. Tell you, when you look through the intake at the valve covers, that really looks cool. Paul Winter's already flying his. He's all hot to trot for it.
The only other thing I did that was a little different, I can't do body work as well as you do, but I used a piece of 1/2-inch aluminum tubing as a hole for the intake.
Okay.
Air intake. Because I don't know, I'm kind of visualizing in, cold times we'll be putting a drop of
You want to put a drop of drool in there, yeah. Okay, but what's wrong with that? That's fine.
And so, I tried to get the paint to match. I was able to do
Yeah, Saito, I like that. And you got the idle adjustment there. You hardly ever use that, though.
Not that. That was mainly just a clearance hole to get that engine in.
Oh, okay.
Well, that'll change. Now, if you look around the other side, you'll see, I don't have the needle valve in. I'll show you how I put that in, but they're just a small hole that...
Hey, your friend from Boeing is making Venturis now?
No, he's not making them.
He's designing.
He designed me one for this, and...
Jimmy Snyder could machine them if you get a print. You give him a blueprint to work with.
I have the print.
Okay, Snyder was down here yesterday. You could get him to do some Venturis if you want to go with a Venturi.
See how it goes. And, one of the other problems...
that really does look nasty, I have to say.
And see, I took the exhaust port and I cut the fuselage side away where the exhaust port would be, and I raised the cowling up so that it fit in. One of the problems in getting this... the crimp, or the cinch nut, I guess you call it, on an exhaust header down tight with the cowling like that. So when I get all my parts out here, I'll show you what I did with the wrench to adapt to this.
See, one of the things we ran into at Mike's, when we made the cowling for Mike's, that fiberglass cowling, is you got to take the muffler off. I don't like that, but for right now, we're going to have to live with it. And Mike has Warren Walker made, maybe you get Warren to make you one. He has the header with Warren made a 90-degree bend, so this sticks right up on the body. It's like a $10 part. It's not a big deal.
We'll see as we...
And probably one of you guys at Boeing could bend the tubing even.
I'm going to turn this over and show you something.
Watch the ceiling. You always forget about the ceiling.
The way I was able, you have that crankcase.
Let me get you the engine pad so you don't think it up. Oh, that fit right in there.
I had to make that oil bypass or vent.
Yeah.
So I have it plumbed from the bottom of the engine to come out and connects to this vent, so the dump will just spray it back.
Right, that's good.
So when I take this apart, I'll be able to show you all the...
Now what's nice is, I got to see if we can do it, the 91 has the vent on the back plate. So just buy a 91 back plate, or just leave this plugged up and put a vent in the back plate. I have to figure out if... You know who will know? Aldrich. I'll ask Aldrich if that can be done.
But I like the way that went in there.
Oh, that really does look nice. Well, all your stuff looks nice.
Clean.
Yeah, your stuff.
I got some...
Now, for the record, so people know, Joe Adamusco is in the process of buying a new house with a double-car garage.
It's gonna be...
And I know he's not into custom cars. I know, it's that retirement. How many, what do you get, 2 years?
2 more years.
2 years, you'll be here every day. We'll move together. This is a nice angle. This thing really does look nice, Joe. It's a millimeter wrench, I know. Yeah, when that's...
You see where I canted that vent so that when I spin it, it'll miss. And what I have is a piece of tubing that I'll connect to there. So that would be my setup on
the Saitos do like to run on muffler pressure. And plus it keeps that from spraying all that fuel on.
Oh, yeah.
If it runs backwards, you don't get that big blast of fuel into the prop. That's a significant thing. Yeah, that header that Warren Walker made, Mike has it over there. Boy, that works nice. It tucks that muffler right in.
I see what I did to the end of this wrench?
Yeah.
I ground it off.
Okay, so you made, Mike's going to have to make one too. Just run it on a grindstone and don't get it too hot?
No, don't get it too hot. It doesn't matter, but the reason being so it can slip over this.
Right.
And I minimize the size of the hole on the cowling.
Right.
Okay?
I see.
So that, these things have to be tight because you don't want...
Oh yeah, you don't want that rolling around.
Except for a guy like me working backwards here, I never know, I forget which way to turn. It's probably the other way, right?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, there it is. So this way, you don't have a big hole in your cowling, but you can...
Yeah, that's nice. Well, see, this I didn't... the Typhoon is bigger up here, so I don't know if the Typhoon is going to need that.
See, now, if I was going to design around the Saito for a whole new... you come up with a whole new... setup. Okay, so that takes care of that aspect. Now, I'll pull the cowling off. And part of this retrofit, I had to reposition one of my hold-down
because of the intake. The intake is off-center if you have never seen a Saito. It's way off to one. But that's how that looks in there.
I don't know. Plumbing connected. And I wanted to show you how
Did you make a special tank for this? Is this a special guy?
Well, it's, you know,
And the center of the tank is on the center of the carburetor. Is that where you wound up?
just to show you how the Venturi or the needle valve assembly would fit.
Joe was just saying it took him 4 years to figure out how to get the needle valve out of the plane. Whoa, man.
Let's see this way.
Okay, I gotcha. Yeah, there's your needle valve. See, now, I never thought of removing the needle valve. I just figured cut a big
What I wanted to avoid was having a big...
Yeah, having a big hole, yeah.
Right. Hopefully when it's in there and it's set up, you're not going to be removing it.
No, you're not going to... The motor didn't come out of tradition all summer.
So,
the second half of the summer.
Dumb luck. Okay.
Yeah, dumb luck. Look at this. It goes right through the blind nut.
I couldn't have figured it out that well, but...
Yeah, well, I hope the Typhoon will probably have no luck. You took all the luck on your project. Boy, this fit even back here. This fit in here nice. Where the intake is?
See this tube right here?
Yeah.
This is the tubing that's connected. No, it's connected to the bottom of the case.
Okay.
And that'll snap up against the bottom of this...
okay.
My dump vent, if you will. But I just don't have it connected right because there's really no need to.
See, the value of doing this, what Joe is showing you here, is that Mike, for instance, is in the middle of his building a plane from scratch. But knowing where all these vents are going to... If you know ahead of time, for instance, that this needle valve, you could make the cowling parting line go through the needle valve.
Absolutely.
See, we didn't know that because we're dumb, is the bottom line.
It's the new...
And we don't know if the 91 is going to be anything like this. Or the laser, I know, is going to be a little bit different. But that's what we're here to do. We're here to try to give you some idea, or, well, people that still want to know how to do this, where these holes are going to wind up. For example, on Mike's cowling, you can see how different his setup is than this setup. But if you know a lot of this stuff ahead of time, boy, this can save you having a... See, you could figure that cowling parting line out to go right through that. Well, it's one of the other choices. We don't even know what exhaust system we're going to use. I'm hopefully going to have some custom exhaust systems before the Typhoon is finished. Using the same thing that Mike's using is a pad on top of the Saito. Since this plane originally had a Tiger 60, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's Tiger 60 holes, and the Saito, there's just a little half moon in the back of one hole, and the Saito basically drops right in. And we've used, well, Mike's got the same thing. You've done the same thing he's done. It's 1/8-inch hardened aluminum.
Well, and I did it because I saw you do it, so that's...
Yeah, well, it works. It works, actually, to tell you the truth. Strega has that set up to hold a jet in. The yellow plane has the setup to hold a 52 Max 4-stroke.
And it's the same principle as what you do in machine shop work when you bolt or you...
No, it works perfectly.
You clamp a workpiece to a milling machine table.
Yep. No, it works perfectly. Okay. This is significant stuff, though, because when people buy a 4-stroke and they want to retrofit, all this information is like...
So this is what you...
Windy, how do we do this? How do we do that?
Look like?
Yeah, that's great.
And the engine, it just comes out, you got to twitch it to the side a little bit to...
Yeah, and you got your vent out there. Let me show you. So your hole, exactly what happened to mine, is the back hole gets a little bit of a... In this hole, you open up one or two drill sizes and you're done.
See what I did with this vent, the crankcase vent?
Oh, yeah.
This might be a good, useful tip for somebody.
That is. Let's see.
What I did was
guys like Paul Winter, they have the same motor. Now, what did you do? You cut that off and soldered it?
Cut it off, counter-drilled it to accept 8/10. Ooh, this bird's having a good time on my head, huh?
Well, he likes you.
Yeah, I know. It's like he wants to probably shoot me. It looks like a bird's...
He's finding a lot of things for breakfast there. Hey, bring this guy around more often.
So I just counter-drilled it.
Okay.
Soldered it and bent it back, because if it was at right angles, you'd have a real... tight bend in it. That's not what I wanted. Plus, if you could see, I had to relieve some of that.
Yeah. But the 91 has this thing coming out the back, which I'm going to see if these back plates interchange. Well, there's no reason.
Okay, so you like this out there?
Yes. But I want to ask George Aldrich if this can be relocated, because you're in the same crankcase pressure.
Well, yeah, if that happens, that'll simplify that. Okay.
Or we'll just try doing it and see if the motor runs. If it breathes out of there, it'll be fine.
But then have a nice look at that.
Oh, man.
All right, then you can take a look in here at my tank.
Yeah, I want to see the tank setup. You got that Behringer? This is a Behringer tank, by the way. Joe's...
Okay, this would be the fill.
Okay.
This is the overflow.
Brian still hasn't flown the one that you made the tank.
Okay, Bird.
Come on, get out of there, Bird.
But what we're doing here is this fill vent is the uniflow vent.
Okay.
Okay, overflow is what it is.
Yeah.
My pickup.
Does that tank come out easy, Joe, or it's a pain? Don't walk.
No, easy. I don't want to take it out.
No.
But I have it set up so that you can pull a couple shims out of it.
Okay. You still can shim it a little bit.
Yeah, I could go up or down.
Okay, and you still have the print?
But I'm right, yeah. I start with the deflector.
Yeah.
So I had to rip it out. Now, I was able to do that without destroying the bottom block. It took a working.
It's a messy job, but you can do it.
But you can see I miniaturized the V deflector where I still get some air flowing through there.
Right.
But you had to be able to get the center line of the tank, an inch and an eighth inch and a quarter off the engine mount. So
if you get the center line of the tank right even with the center of the carburetor, you're going to be real close. You'll be a playing card away.
So
and you still got the original pads. You didn't even have to take the original pads out.
The only thing I had to do in here, if I could point to it, is
that's the intake. Okay.
I had to kind of just grind that away a little bit. But again, as we learn, there'll be maybe a way of just sliding that over, and all you need is like an eighth of an inch, or if you wanted to center line it, that would be the ideal thing.
Well, what I do is I measure from here up to the center, and you're in the ballpark. You're a playing card away then.
No, but what I'm talking about is the traditional kind of the restricted, the non-carbureted.
Yeah. See, on a Saito though, you can take this. Just hold the motor like this. You can loosen these two screws and move this whole thing over. Because it's on an angle now, you have to make a little adapter out of nylon or something, but Jimmy could probably make it in a heartbeat. But what it does, it moves the needle valve, but it doesn't matter. But what it does, see how this much sticks out of the plane? It gets it in the middle of the plane.
But for now, we'll see. And when I get the needle valve blocking...
What we know right now, the thing we know is with the motor set just like this, as inconvenient as this is, the motors run fine.
Oh, yeah.
So, before you go to tinker mode, you want to have it that it runs fine.
Spinners for these.
We were worried about making spinner nuts already.
Spinners
Saito is not
It's an 8mm thread. So this is a true turn.
Okay, so you got a true turn 8mm nut?
A true turn 8mm nut for
So you put the two Saito nuts on first, and then put the 8mm on.
Where's my wrench for that? Probably just finger tight.
Yeah.
So what I did was...
Okay, I see.
Just adapted it. As long as the main nut and the jam nut's down tight, if you have one or two threads of engagement there, you're good.
3 threads is what you're supposed to have, Tom.
And then the screws. Yeah. Because I know we're going to be using electric starters on this.
Oh, you better believe it.
You want things down nice and tight, and of course I try to lighten up the back plate a little bit there.
See, another thing too, if you're going to use this, Zambelli is making the thing with 2 screws that go right into the back plate, so that this now, even though it's like a safety thing, even if this loosens up, you don't have this whole spinner coming off at 9,000 RPM into your face.
But believe me, Wendy, if you properly tighten the jam or the nut with that
let me show you. If he tightens it, look at this guy, he's a football player. What do you play? What are you, Phil Sims or something?
I think now that worked out pretty good.
That is good. But you know what the problem is you got the guys that don't know, they tighten this with a 4-way wrench, and then they don't hold this, they just tighten this one. You got to go automotive wrench. You go automotive wrench.
Can you hold it?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, and don't think this is like a hype here.
This you have your 14mm.
You got the footnote. Brian got whacked a few times. He got a few black
12mm, and then you use, in this case, it's a 10mm.
12 and 10. And you jam it.
That's right. You got to have the right tool.
Right. If you try doing this with 4-way wrenches, you're going to lose your eye.
And once you get it tight, you should be good to go.
Sure. Nice job on the back, but you did that at work?
Yeah, I did my little tour.
Lay
it out, drill some holes in it. But that's my setup.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to get this broken in.
I can't wait for it to stop snowing. You get your new house, we're going to be moving into your garage, I think.
And I'm closer to my flying field.
Ooh!
It's right up the street.
Joe bought a house with his own flying field. Joe, I'll be down there. I'll move to Philadelphia.
All right, let's...
We're just looking to see how much of an ordeal it would be to get the 91 in here. This is the Saito 91. It's 1.2 ounces heavier than a 72. It's a tad bigger. It isn't exactly the same case, but it looks like you would have to take a little bit of material off the pads. But see, I'm going to make the Typhoon crutch just wider. And the holes are just a little bit different. Not a whole lot. But boy, you're about 10 minutes and a Dremel tool away from having a 91 in here if you ever wanted it to. Oh God, it's unbelievable. And you'd probably have to make some longer landing gears too.
Okay, now you said that
Now take that out.
You said
I want to show you the back. The back plate on this is, see how nice that is?
Yeah.
Well, it is a different back plate, so forget about switching back plates.
Why wouldn't the principle? I don't know.
I think it would work. I don't see why it would. This may be plastic though. This may be nylon.
Yeah, I think this is too. No, maybe it isn't.
No, this is aluminum. But see, they have a boss in there for another, for a fitting. Maybe they run these with fuel pumps or something. Who knows? It's 1.2 ounces heavier and 50% more power. Kind of a good trade-off.
You know what But you visualize like 12.5-inch diameter 4-bladed props with this, maybe?
14-inch 4-blades.
Okay, but
Yeah, two 14.5s glued together.
It looks like an airplane engine.
Yeah, well, I don't know what. Put two of them together. They even look cooler when they make those double Saitos. Yeah, we're sick. We're sick as puppies.
Like a Harley.
Yeah. Harley Saito. That is beautiful. Okay, so we know you're not going to drop this in, but you're going to have to do some grinding to do a 91.
One of the key things, though, is that for these engines, retrofits, it's a lot easier working around an airplane that had half-inch square motor mounts.
Yeah, if you have 3/8 motor mounts, use another plane. You gotta have some material to grind away at there. That's number one. See, Tradition has those big motor mounts. That's why it's been nice and solid. For the first times we've done this test, this is the 91 muffler, and this is the 72 muffler. The headers are exactly the same. The threads are the same. But what we're looking at here is, obviously this one is made to flow a lot more gas. What's the weight? Oh, they're the same. They're almost the same. And the headers fit. So what you would have a choice is on a 72, you might want to run the 91 muffler. And on the 91, you could run the 72 and just see if you gain or lose RPM. Or if this one is quieter. I know the 72 is ultra quiet.
It has a little aspirator.
Yeah, they both have little baffles, yeah. But even if you drill a baffle out, they don't get a lot louder. The noise is contained inside the motor because the exhaust valve's shut, for the time it's making noise.
That's really neat.
But that, it's a pain in the neck with all the two-strokes. None of the mufflers interchange. They're all a little bit off and a little bit. So that's a nice feature, too. The other feature we were talking about is Joe's having some Venturis designed. That's a whole nother. I wonder if what size the carburetor is relative to the 72. 91 is bigger. In other words, if you probably could use the 91 carburetor. No, it's the same carburetor.
Looks like it's got a little different.
The manifold's different.
It's probably a little bigger, longer. It's a different setup.
Yeah.
And if you look in there, probably
the bores are different. The bores are different. This is the first time Joe has ever seen the laser in person. Now see what's nice about the laser, the exhaust system. You can put it a side exhaust, rear exhaust, they'll come out the top.
And you just tighten down on this little switch clamp?
Same thing with the carburetor.
Oh, man.
The carburetor can be moved. You can put the carburetor back by the tail wheel and just run a pipe. Look at the workmanship on that. That's unbelievable. Well, look at the motor mounts, too. Now see what's nice about this, you could just line up Super Tiger 60 holes. You can have holes that's
a little more clearance, but
you need clearance in the back because of the way the See, but this engine is designed to go on a scale plane. It's flat in the front.
But even if you take and you would, really go back here and open your V deflector
or you have to make a cowling that ends back here.
But you have your pressure, your fitting on the back of it. That is nice.
The fitting's on the back. I like that.
So this may not be the easiest engine to retrofit, but boy, if it works okay, you'd surely.
If this runs 10 grand on a 14.5. It'll be in tradition in 15 minutes, believe me. It'll fit. It will fit, Joe.
Now, this is, who produces this?
Laser in England. That is, there's no castings. That's all made out of bar stock. I'll bet you show that to Dave Dowdy. He'd really,
sure.
he just, that's bowling stuff. It really is nice. But we're going to get to run it this spring. As soon as the weather breaks, and I got to break it in yet.
Now this has, is there a cinch or a secondary lock for this?
No. This has just got an ordinary, it looks just like a regular,
what is it, washer, does that fit up tight
it's
again?
probably backwards. Mike was playing with it.
Okay, in other words,
Hold that next to the Saito, just for, the Saito's a little smaller. See, because of the way the head is designed. Line up the crankshaft. Yeah, you'd have to allow for this piece of the head. The rocker arms are up in his head, you know. Look at the way they design it. That's pretty, and the finning, everything, the machining on this is beautiful. George Rutherford was at the factory where they make these. He said the guy's really something special.
Now you're saying you think...
It took a long time to get this. There was a waiting list. There isn't, Elliot Scott got this from me, but the waiting list of, I'll put 6 months to get one.
Is that why there's an ES in here?
Yeah. Yeah, they put your name on it. I don't know. Put Windy on there. I love these motor mounts. You could line that up with anything. You could put that in a Kawasaki 500 motorcycle.
This will be in tradition.
Yeah. How did you know that, Joe? Everything's in tradition. We'll be flying this.
What an airplane.
Soon as the weather breaks, we'll be flying this puppy.
That may be the most important airplane you ever had, that tradition. I mean,
it's the most used.
I mean, as far as...
If you measure things by how many million flights you have out of it, it's the
research and
thing.
development. And you want to make sure you don't put the wrong one in the wrong hole, right? Got nice O-rings where that'll just pop right in there.
Yeah, O-ringed up. Goes through the cinch. And then the cinch, look how nice that lines up on the cinch and everything. Well, it's nice if you like a real exhaust-looking muffler. Hey, I never thought of something. You may be able to make an adapter for this so you could have like a siding for. We're losing our mind.
Sure, well, no, you're right.
It's going to be tell me something. Are you looking forward to spring when the weather? Yeah. I can't wait.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
Have one that threads in with a...
Right. We'll just put Saito threads on it.
But see, then the thing is that the way this header pipe is set up, you got to slip the wrench on and off. I don't know how you do that. To get it, but see again, well, the next airplane that's going to use this engine will be designed.
You design a cowling parting line to go right through there.
You have it set up different.
Well, that's what we're learning.
I mean, it's a retro.
Yeah. And this is why the videos are good, because everybody in the world has to figure the same 12 problems out. And I hope the video. This is part of what we're trying to learn for the Typhoon.
That's really nice.
A spare Typhoon cowling. Just shove the whole motor in there. See if the motor fits inside. Oh, yeah, I like that. There's the Typhoon cowling. Yeah, that'll fit over the laser. Put the laser in there. I bet that'll fit. No, that thing, you could put the whole engine in there. Muffler and all, sure. That'll fit right in there. Oh, we're going to have fun this spring. I can't wait till the weather breaks. Joe? We're going to have fun. Fun, till Daddy takes the T-Bird away. Anyway, hope you got some good ideas you can use if you're thinking of Saitos, retrofits, Typhoons, or lasers. Hope this information serves you well. We get the cows on a 91? You can see when Joe and I have a visit, we completely lose our mind. Anyway, this is Elliot Scott's rough drawing. Cowling's already done. Next week, we hope we're going to be able to lay up a couple of fuselages. Elliot's looking to build one of these right away, too. Maybe by the time we get to go to England, I'll bring him his fuselage. Look at this. That fits right in it. You don't even see the valve covers, huh?
No, you'll still...
And, of course, you got to use the 72 in AMA, but in F2V, but I don't care.
How are you going to solve the problem of the...
I don't know yet. I don't know. I may have to get Warren to make a header that comes out. I want the thing to go parallel, not... You know what I mean? Or if I have a thing that comes out... I have a header that goes inside the body, but then you need a blister here.
Yeah, but then I'm thinking about how are you going to how are you gonna...
I don't know.
You know, that's like the problem I have.
Yeah, well, that's what problems are for, problem solvers like you, Joe. That's why we got you to bring the plane down today. Anyway, that cowl's gonna work. I originally had the parting line, see what I was trying to do? Didn't work, had to go redo the whole thing. And, but the way the cowl worked out on here.
Nose moment is what? 8 inches?
8 inches for the 91.
And, your tail moment?
17 and a half tail moment on, same as Miss Ashley.
What was this? The second?
Oh, I redrew this a few times just to get more side area.
Yeah, okay.
It was getting a little wimpy on side area. It's not a totally like an Al-Rabe scale thing, but it's, you know, it's scale enough to me. Once you put the round bells and the invasion stripes and everything on there, this is the part I like.
Yeah.
The big wheels, the big high gear sitting up off the ground.
What was that? I saw you had an elevator laying around.
Yeah, I got the elevators done. They're drying. Oh, the tail. I doped that up yesterday. That should be drying. Should be almost dry. It still needs to be sanded out next.
Okay, what's percentage of the wing? What, 20?
20.
20?
Yeah, always 20. 20 always works real middle of the road.
Geodetic?
No, just regular. You can hold it up to the light even. Watch this. No, you can't.
But is that rolled leading edge or what?
Yeah, rolled. 2 pieces of 32nd laminated together.
Okay.
And a 16th inch trailing edge with little V blocks in it.
But is those geos?
No, just 1 inch rib
Just
spacing.
ribs, okay.
Yeah, same as this guy is.
Well, this looks, that's more, that's what, 5/8? Okay.
Half.
Yeah, that's it.
Half. Remember when you made the Spitfire tails?
Yeah.
With all that carving on the leading edge? How many hours did you carve the leading edge? Tell me the truth.
Well, because...
A lot of hours, huh?
Because it was curved. I don't know.
Yeah, I remember doing that.
You could probably roll a tube for that, but...
Yeah, but...
I know.
A lot of work. When you can do them with the
Wiggly rudder?
wiggly rudder, big scale rudder. I think it's going to work out just...
You're on your way, man.
Yeah. I can't wait to lay up the body. The first one was not a good one, but I notice by the time I get 2 or 3 of them made, I'll have one that I'm real happy with. Our Typhoon reference library as of today. We've got some...
Someone...
Yeah.
Glossies for
Don Dixon made glossies for me. I got an old... Bruce Hunt sent me this magazine. We got a lot of Typhoon. This has all of these, plenty of reference literature, plenty of paint jobs. In here, this one, Elliot sent me this one. This one has a lot of color. A lot of the color stuff. Joe's going to donate to me a little bit of his, what do you call it, robin's egg blue or?
Duck egg blue.
Duck egg blue. If we get some duck egg blue going, one of the choices we'll have.
Then you gotta get a...
I gotta get a urine. Yeah, when I go to England, I'll pick one up. I'll have to get one of these English terriers that bites you when you go to pet them. A lot of good reference. A lot of people have been sending me. Jim Plaskin sent me some reference material.
The Tempest had that.
The Tempest has the round rudder.
Which, if you like this airplane next year, it could be the...
Yeah.
Ooh, see, I didn't see this.
Yeah, that's Saito 72.
Okay.
That's got the little infrared thing on it.
You said you had a ball with this thing.
Oh man, was this?
Do you have any video of this in operation?
Yeah, I'll get that tape to you.
I'd like to see that.
Yeah, I got a tape of it the day we flew. Well, the day we put it in, it was a real fun day. We couldn't figure out how to make it work, but we got it working now.
And what prop did you end up with there?
That's a 13-inch 3-blade, but it's on a 72 and it's de-pitched. I'm thinking 4-blade though. I got to find somebody who makes a 13-inch 4-blade. I'm not in the mood to make props anymore after that making those 5-blades. Speaking of making the 5-blades, there's one of them right there. Don Dixon's got the last of the 5-blades. There's Midgley's test carbon wing, and that's Mike's wing over there on the...
So this is something...
And that is an 800-inch wing. That's not...
800 squares.
Yeah, that's a biggie, with the big flaps and everything.
What airfoils on this?
PM airfoil. PM, big Cardinal, big PM.
It's what, 63 inch?
64.
Now, the squared off tips, there's a reason for this?
No, it's just a test plane. We just want to go fly it. So, you can tell, we're going to go flying. Look at... Do you think anybody's going to fly today? Forget about it. Not us.
So weight-wise, how is this comparable?
That's the same as a foam wing. It's 15 ounces ready to...
What you learn.
Oh, the next one will be a lot lighter because we got much better material. But for a test one, so we can have a rent-a-plane this summer. We got a rent-a-plane. Here's a rent-a-plane right down here.
Okay, so you use the
Nomex flaps.
Did you sand it to that 1/8" thickness? Or
No. Like
somebody sliced it?
Originally, he's got 1/4 inch coming. We didn't have any 1/4 inch. I just made a set to see how they work.
Okay.
Every part of that's going to work out, I think. And that's Mike's silver wing and a wing mold. Mike's wing is ready for the silver sand out. He's been letting it store up here. And of course, the most fun of all you can ever have is just hang out in the spit, hang out with Wendy. Is it worth driving up here, Joe, to have a day?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh man, when we get your new house, we're going to come down here and have parties in your house, and even when you're not there. Anyway, a lot of cool stuff. It's a good time to be alive.
What engine's in it?
So Joe and I talk about this all the time.
Proposal.
Now tell them what the proposal is. Here's the 96 Spitfire right here.
We're going to take the 96 Spitfires in 2006, take them on a competition trail, maybe go to the Nats and just kind of recreate that whole Super Tiger 4-bladed, 5-bladed fun we had there.
That was a lot of fun. 96. Whenever I look at the 96 year Nats videos, I just wonder if it can get any better.
And I don't even have 100 flights on my blue Spit yet.
Wow.
And I'm not going to grind it down. I'm saving it.
No, save it.
5th anniversary. I guess for an airplane, that's like being 100 years old, right?
Right. I'll tell you one thing. These guys get the royal treatment. They really do get the royal treatment.
Where'd you get these?
The guy at Brodex gave me those little Spitfire models. They're cool. But we will live to fight again.
You bet.
And I think about that year. Now, what that year was 96. I wonder how much better than that it could get. That really was a fun year. See, sometimes you live a year of your life and you never know it was the best year you ever could have. And it goes by you, but we're going to live it over again. Had a great visit with Joe, and I hope you picked up some information. If you're interested in any of this retrofit stuff, we all have old planes, and it seems like the interest was never greater in retrofitting older planes. We're probably going to be doing more of it this summer. Yeah, Joe back anytime. I love his head. Boy, that is the most delicious head I've ever had. Oh man, Peeps. Peeps. Paul Walker said he loves you. He really did. Paul Walker sent a note and he said, say hello to Peeps. Okay, Peeps, this is hello from Paul Walker. Paul, woo! As the snowflakes fall, I don't know if you can see, it is snowing.
As soon as it melts, Wendy, we're going to be out there trying this puppy out.
Believe me, people worldwide are going to be impressed when they see this guy fly. I think it's cool as hell. What a visit.
Okay.
It just doesn't get any more fun than this unless you have a lot of money.
Hey.
Maybe even for Joe, when he leaves, I always give him a big box of tapes for his friend at Boeing. They share them at Boeing. David Downey and the other guys that have helped us over the years. We hope we're going to have Venturi design soon. We're going to have some, well, anything relating to the 4 strokes we can add to the pie right now, and if somebody comes up with something better, share it with us. We gave this an extra little time to dry, and we had the day with Joe's visit, so what I want to show here is just how nice, how quickly the powder coming off. When you see powder, you know the dope is thoroughly dry, and it's not balling up, it's not making little chewing gum balls. Just basically, I'm going to sand this out, and I think it's ready for some filler. The only problem is, of course, it's snowing today. We're not going to be able to spray the filler on. But we're ready. Once this is sanded out, this will be ready for a coat of filler. And the test is, as always, is that it just powders off. When dope powders off, you know you've done your job. Just turns right to powder. But we had just a fantastic visit with Joe, and I really appreciate that he's shown us how he retrofitted that, because I can use some of those ideas on my own upcoming Typhoon project, especially because I want to have the ability to put so many different engines in it as a test plane. Anyway, this is our coat of silver, and today this has been drying about 3 days now. You can still see the grain in it. And here's what's happened is I've tried to really put the minimum amount of paint on this, because the tail is coming out so light. And one of the things that happens is, it's called the Barbell Effect. And to go through this real quick, the plane flies off the center of gravity, if you can picture this. And if we're going to have a heavy motor, but it's going to be on a shorter moment arm, and I didn't want to have a heavy tail. You can see the problem, because it's a short. I'm trying to minimize the amount of weight at the extremities, and that's always proven to be the best system. In other words, it's always better to have, in the best of all worlds, you'd have no moment arms. When you have long moment arms, and weight starts moving, it moves and then you have to stop it. It moves in a square loop, you have to move it and stop it so many times. So I'm trying to, again, another test. Everything I'm doing here is a test. I skipped the whole filler step. I just went from basically 3 coats of Brodac clear. I sprayed on a coat of silver. Now I know this is not going to be, I've already done enough of this to know that I'm going to need another coat. And it looks like the wing, this is 600 paper by the way, you can see the number up there. But what I wanted to do is, I wanted to see how much I've cheated the system here, because I'm pretty much going to be spending the better part of today sanding this out. We have the record for this day. It snowed yesterday. It snowed the day Joe was here, in fact, too. And to make matters worse, everything melted that day and then froze up like ice, and I have 3 houses to shovel. So this will just take my mind off that I'll be outside freezing later. Now you can see, because I've cheated, and cheating is a little, see the little moon craters? Well, this is what silver buys you, and this is why I didn't bother putting that gray filler on here anymore, because the gray filler didn't show these as well as the silver. See, it just candle it in the light. It almost looks, and you can see all the little low spots. So what I'm going to do is, I'll do most of this off camera. This is nothing other than about 3 or 4 hours of labor to sand the wing and tail out. But in the meantime, I wanted to mention something, and you can kind of watch how much time I spend doing one little area here. You know, we live in a wonderful time. We have a lot of things that a lot of people take for granted, and flush toilets on cold days, indoor plumbing, that kind of thing, VCRs, TVs. But we are the only generation in the world of stunt. We are the only ones, they didn't have it years ago, that we can share our lives with videos. Now every year we pick up some new subscribers. Sometimes we lose a few, but it seems like every year it grows. And what happened, one of the people we picked up this year was Bill Rutherford. Now Bill just had his Mustang, it was on one of the previous videos. And because Bill and I were chatting on the phone, he was watching videos and stuff, and we were having fun. We're able to share our lives and our interest in modeling. And what's nice, I talked him into taking a picture of his shop. I'd like to see his shop. Now, obviously, most people have more interest in life than just model planes, and Bill certainly, because he was an airline pilot, seems to have a lot more interest even than an average person would have. And I said, gee, you know, one of the things a lot of people enjoy about Windy videos is not only watching people sand out coats of silver or see Joe Adamusco's cowling or Windy's Typhoon or whatever. What they enjoy is seeing the other person up close and personal. And Bill Rutherford sent a short little video, a walkthrough of his shop, and some of the other projects. Now, Bill, believe me, has done vacuum bagging, carbon molding, built Reno type RC planes, just to name a few. And I'm going to splice a couple of minutes of that video into this. But keep in mind, you know, one of the things we have, and that's about what it's going to take, you know, I'm going to have 4 hours of doing this, 3 or 4 hours. But you can see here, I would need to do a little bit more. By the way, this spot that you see here, it looked like the tissue wasn't sticking down real well there. So what I did, I just hit it with thin CA, and that, for all purposes, has disappeared. But right here, this is exactly the amount of silver I want to leave on. If I sand more than this off, I've defeated the purpose of having the silver on, and I'll run the risk of going down into real wood. So if you can get the whole ring, well, if I can get the whole ring, and I'm going to look like Mr. Aluminum pretty soon. If I can get the whole thing to just look like that, just the slightest little hint of silver, and there's a lot of square inches. While I'm doing this, I'll have this really nice video that Bill Rutherford sent. Now, Bill is a really talented guy. He's got Raid Mustangs. He's got home-built airplanes. He's got RC planes. So he's like a Renaissance man. And now that he's joined us, what's really nice is I hope he's going to be sharing things that... Another thing, too, I always like is going to somebody's shop that I've never been to before. Even when I was in England, seeing people's shops. Now, I know Elliot Scott's building a new shop. So is Joe Adamusco as soon as he gets his new house. We all like to see other people's shops and see the way they lay things out. And Don Dixon is building a new shop. I mean, Ken Clapson sent me a lot of pictures of his shop when he set it up. The nice that everybody has some idea of what would suit them best, how to organize things, where to put the VCR and the TV so you can watch hundreds and hundreds of windy videos. See, I don't know about that. I don't know how much of this I'm making up as I go along. But anyway, I figured rather than just watching sanding silver, we'll splice in a couple minutes of this Bill Rutherford video. This is a very interesting. Bill, I appreciate that you've shared this with us, and I'll be sanding silver while we're watching your video. Bill Rutherford from Texas.
Hello, Wendy. Welcome to my house. Come on in and I'll show you my model stuff so we can reminisce. Right back there? Okay, come on inside. This is a real nice neighborhood we live here. It's getting to be a bunch of old farts around here. A lot of retired people now. The kids have gone and so on. See the moss hanging off the trees like it was like the old South. The thing about here is we have usually pretty good sized garages because we don't have basements here in Texas. And certainly not in this part because the water table is too high. It would constantly be flooded. You can dig down not too far, you're in the water here. Come on inside. I really liked your picture of your dining room at Christmas time. Your wife really did a beautiful job. Our dining room, Wendy. Well, it's not real big, but we can get about 10 people in here. It was pretty crowded then. We got a living room. My wife and I like to get together and do puzzles. So this is the last puzzle we did. And it's a murder mystery too. You got to figure out what happened after you do the puzzle. Because when you do a puzzle, you can't have a picture of it beforehand. That's cheating. And this side, Dan. While we have living room, we spend all our time in the den. The living room's kind of a wasted thing, you know. So come on out to the shop and I'll show you where I do all my creativeness. Sorry. This is the garage, and as you can see here, Wendy, this is, well, you gotta have some bicycles in the garage. I mean, you gotta have, I mean, I know you got a motorcycle, but we got bicycles. This is the wing to my two wing panels. There's two here to my RV6. The fuel tank goes here, and this is the left wing panel. You can see up here where the wing goes. I don't know what that's sitting there for. This part holds together, or two halves in the fuselage. There's a fuselage here. I just got the canopy sitting on here. It has to be cut and fitted. You can see the frame that the canopy goes on here. So this all goes forward up to here. Come on up here, Pete, and I'll show the instrument panel. This is the instrument panel, obviously. All digital. For my engine monitoring here, it's all there, normal gauges and things. I've got a 2-axis autopilot. I can hook up and shoot an ILS approach on my autopilot. I can hook it up to fly off the directional gyro. I can hook my autopilot up to fly off of my GNS, and I can also hook it up to fly off the ILS. So it's a pretty sophisticated autopilot. Haven't got my engine yet. Still waiting for the $21,000 to show up in the mail for it. It hasn't shown up yet. And you can over here, you can see some of the wiring. I mean, you have to just tons and tons of wires. And there's another wiring loom from autopilot. So, everything you buy from an airplane is like $5,000 and $6,000. You know, this is like 7, this is 3, the autopilot was 6, all the instruments you're looking around at 2.5. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And on the wall over here, you see all these different parts. I haven't done any work on this thing for a couple of months, but as soon as this Mustang I'm building, I'm going to go back to working on this. So over here, Wendy, and everybody got a motor sitting there. This is a Mustang I quit working on because I didn't like some things about it. And this is something I used to do here when for RC, I used to build these toolboxes for people. I could just get about $400 for them, but it wasn't worth it. But they've got racks on top for put your pylon eraser up here, and then inside it's all wood. It only weighs about 12 pounds. It's very light, because everything is, come over here, Pete, show them, everything here is mitered out. Everything's mitered in here. All your drawers are holding all your stuff. Like just a probe for starting your jets. And then all this box down here is the transmitters. You can see I haven't used it for a while. But just everything to save weight on it, and it really makes it nice when you go to the flying field. You can just take everything with you there. Come on, change it in there. But a lot of work goes into making one of those. This is my Mustang. It's a Ridley Mustang. It's got a roller top block. But there were just some things I didn't like that I built on it. So. And then it's not classic legal. I want to go out to Vintage Stunt and fly on that. And this has a different airfoil on it, so I thought, I don't want anybody knowing to run it. See here, the garage normally stopped here, and then I added this last year for one of my workshop. See, this is my domain. And I wanted everything out of sight, so I put these doors on over here. Like I've got all my paint here. All my Rolex doors down there. Not as much as you got, but I got a lot. And various other paints and stuff in there. And there's my Mustang I'm building now. And I'm putting the clear on it now. And I'll grow that. And I fully agree with you on that. Don't change products. Start with one product, stick to it throughout. So we're doing that. We've got our elevator, our rudder, our elevators. We're papering stuff now. You see that here. So on over here, I've just got more wall stuff. Oh, and here's the engine that's going to my Mustang here. Right? Little 12 cubic inch. I hope they overlook it on the rule committee. You know, I mean, it's not a 65, but, you know, just a little bit bigger. And it's got a steel tubing motor mount here. That was a bitch to make. I'll make that all myself. I had to design it first. Oh, thanks for your advice on getting that laser incidence meter. That has really been a wonderful deal. That has been great. I really enjoyed that. It's made getting this stuff so much better. There's a few slides to the Mustang here. Weight-wise, it ought to come out pretty good. Well, I think we're looking at probably in the mid-50 ounce range, which ought to be good. Got my TVs up there where we watch your videos and so on. Here, shoot it up here, Pete. Here's the Vendetta that I made. That's my daughter Nancy there, and it had the engine I just showed you. And it wasn't that fast. It's clocked at a little under 200. The electric lights retracts, and oh, what a pain to build that airplane. I mean, we built two of them, and it was just, it took months and months making the mold. It was just a pain. Carbon and Kevlar and E-glass and everything. One was foam with carbon spar on top. It was E-glass on the bottom, and it was a nightmare. But that wing, we could take the supported about 2/3 of the way out over some foam blocks, and I could put two full-size grown-ups could stand in the middle of that thing, and it just hardly budged at all. And my brother's building a boat there. Not in the boats, but that's what he's doing. Come on outside, I'll show you what's back out here. We've been having a rainy spell. This way, if you ever come visit me, Wendy, we'll have barbecues out here in the summertime. We have a lot of fun out here. But as you can see, it's rather rainy today. Anyway, this is where I live, and this is my little domain. Oh, when I paint, you know, you do your painting outside. I try not to use too much retarder. I just had some bad experiences with that. I mean, I have it. I'll use it if I need to. But what I do is, I have a stove here, and I just get the temperature up, and this thing puts out a lot of heat. But I paint on this side over here, Wendy. And I've got one of those masks when you put on, and it's got the air source, and so I'm blowing air into me when I'm painting. If you show them up here, Pete, I've got lights up here, I've got lights over here, right along here. Then I've got another stand-up that I put right here. So when I paint, I do it right here. I move all this stuff out. I do it right here. I can get the temperature I want. I've got a gauge in there for humidity, so I can control it to a certain degree. But, you know, you would paint by reflection, so I've got reflection all over. I mean, I can really see what I'm doing. And it works out pretty good. I'm painting my Corvette here. It works out good. Anyway, my Mustang in here. You're always trying to be organized, right, Lenny? On my balsa wood, I built some racks down here for it, but I still need to do a little bit more to it to keep everything organized, because I got, you got 16, 3/32, 1/8 inch, and corner, and it's always getting muddled up, so this has helped a little bit, but I got to put a couple of layers in there to get it. On my stand here, some of the special stuff that goes on. I mean, look at this control horn here. You notice it's bent like that. Well, it's torsionally bent. If I took this here, it would spring back up. Big it out where it's nice and smooth. And your belt cranks right in there. All right, one of these belt cranks. But anyway, you can see the trailing edge is like this, and then also this way, it's like this. So you can use split horns, and I had a little problem with that. It was one horn wasn't the same height as the other one. Not one of your products, by the way, but you run into these little problems from time to time. Oh, and this thing, if you notice the word landing gear, it's got shock absorbing gear. It's sitting over there, but that goes on there. And we'll get something to show you here. This is the fuel tank, Wendy. Everything all has to be custom made. There's nothing, it's probably like we were talking about today, one of the things that hurts is holidays, because you've got to do all this stuff by yourself, and somebody getting into it, you just don't realize all the work. And anyway, I got my shock absorbing gear here. I got a spring that goes right here, and so that it will be sitting up about like so. This will have to be cut off a little bit down here, but there'll be a real collar here that will let it go down so far. And then when you land, the weight of the airplane just moves this thing up. And this is the stop here. So the springs on, you got this nice shock absorbing gear. Really pretty nice feature. And then all made out of music wire and brass tubing and copper wire. Not very sophisticated, but getting everything lined up on that where it slides up and down kind of easy is a pain. Anyway, that's about my little deal. We got fans up in the ceiling here. Oh, and I had to put this paper up here like this so it wouldn't reflect in the TV screen. And you look at it from this side, you can see it's got black paper up there because it would reflect when I couldn't see your beautiful image on the TV screen when I was watching it. When getting wiped out, so. Anyway, Lenny, that's about it for here. Just want to say hi. You can see I got my Mustang pictures all over the place. So, until next time, adios.
I want to thank Bill Rutherford. That was great. By the way, a couple of things. After I do this for an hour or so, I go to then I remember, why not put the rubber gloves on? Anyway, I'm trying to get used to using these thin rubber gloves that Bill Hummel has graciously donated to my cause. The blue ones are way too thick, and I don't know. I'm trying to get used to these, but it's difficult. Anyway, this is the one step, and I wanted to make this point. The one step, we're using M600, we're using 600 sandpaper. I'm going to detail out the hinge lines. This is the one step that usually separates, in my estimation, a plane that has a really nice finish from one of those that you go, wow, how did he do that? That extra little bit of time finishing. And Bill made a good point on the video of only using one product. He's been having some good luck. Well, pretty awesome, that plane he's building. Anyway, we hope that he enjoys the videos as much as we enjoyed the trip to his shop. There's just no way when you're doing this, and I've seen a lot of people try to take some kinds of shortcuts and things, but in my case, I have to dedicate the better part of a day to sanding this out, because in all the little hinge line areas, what I do is I fold up the sandpaper into 4. And I want to get in all the corners. I don't know if you can see this. We'll try to get this on a close-up maybe. I'm trying to get in all the corners all the angles and edges. I really was disappointed in the way that gray filler worked out. I had high hopes for that, but see, you won't know, and if you don't try this stuff, you'll never know. Part of making progress in life is you got to be able to be willing. In my case, I'm always willing. Accept some failure, some setbacks. Now, maybe even in this corner, one of the things, I have this piece of motor mount. I'm trying to come up with a way to get in those corners really efficiently. But if you shortchange yourself on sanding out the silver, or if you try to do it with 320 paper or something, I've even gone so far as to do this with 1200 paper, when I really was totally determined that this was going to be the killer plane of the century or whatever. Now, one thing I've noticed, for some reason, I don't know why, the bird loves M600. You try to take the Come on, get out, I'll send you to Bill Rutherford's. Get out of here. Anyway, I want to let me get this on a close-up, detail out all these little hinge line pockets in around these areas. And at this point in time, there's always a point in time when you have to decide you're going to go all the way and make this a killer finish, or you're going to, let's hurry up and get this done, and I'll be done in a half an hour, and then we can go sit and have pizza. And in my case, because I don't have a lot of willpower, I'm always tempted to take the shortcut. But then I go upstairs and I think, nah, I want it right. Being honest, in the beginning I really had trouble working with the rubber gloves. It really was a nuisance, but I've kind of adapted into it. Part of it is that I use them a lot doing the molding. And by the way, Bill has done some vacuum bagging, molding. Hope he's going to share some more with us. I always love seeing people's shops. When I was a partner in the machine shop, one of my biggest things I enjoyed was going to other people's machine shops to see how they laid out their equipment, how they stored their tools. I always feel like I'm learning something when I'm looking at somebody else's shop, because I feel they've evolved. The ideas that they've evolved over the years, I want to take advantage of and build on them. I don't want to have to go back and reinvent the wheel, then reinvent fire, reinvent pizza, and to learn to get where I am. I want to build on their shoulders. I want them and give them always the full credit for their ideas. I just wish one thing, like in my case, I wish I could paint inside the house like I did years ago. But, you know, the trade-off of having a wife as good as Karen for a wife, in return for freezing out in the garage, give me the key to the garage. Anyway, detailing these parts out. We get to the wing, the part that's going to take a lot of time, and I'll try to put as many little tips as I can on. I'm almost ready to do the ring now, is the open bays. When the bays are perfect, you get that gloss going right down the wing, and everybody looks at it and they go, wow, you know, they're like awed by it. Nothing is worse than, and I've seen a couple of planes, and a couple of them have been ones I've built, that I've shortchanged myself on doing the bays and taking that quick ride to Grandma's. And after the plane, you know, after a season of flying, I look at it and I say, why didn't I just spend those couple extra days? Anyways, all this little detailing, it just takes time. This is what separates, in my book, I feel, and always the edges. Notice, every time I sand anything, I sand the edges. Because if you leave this sharp, and it's like a razor blade, as soon as you go buff the plane, it pops right through. So if you hit it each time, at least you have a fighting chance. But that's about the amount of silver I would be leaving on for what I hope one more coat and we'll be done. But if it needs another one, see, that's the other part too, is to never be satisfied and just keep grinding and grinding. Eventually, if you sand it enough times, it's going to be perfect. But to know how much to leave on, don't sand it all off, leave just that amount on. And it's hard to explain that. I don't know how you could explain that in a stunt news column or something, but if you don't have video, it's just difficult to explain it. There's just a little bit. Now, another factor, if I had weighed this part before I put the silver on and now, and I don't do that, I don't bother with this, it's a grain here and a grain there, what will happen is, after you sand the silver, the part is lighter because you've taken more off the mountaintops than you've put in the valley. Almost every time, that you sand out a coat of silver the right way, the part will be lighter. You're constantly making it nicer and lighter and moving up row after row in the appearance judging at the same time that the plane is getting lighter and better finish. So, but the only part that we all lack is the willpower to sit down and do this for 3 or 4 hours. Again, the secret to all of this sanding of silver, and I've counted this as one of my major things I've been able to pass on to other people. If you really want to have that finish that makes you crazy, you know, that you see in your sleep, this is the point in time that you're building the base for that by sanding out the silver over and over again until you get it to where you're really happy with it. And anytime I think that all this work isn't worthwhile, what I tend to do is just go up in a Spitfire bedroom or out here or somewhere where I have one of the planes that I've put a big chunk of my life into, so I can get a feel for just, you know, when it's done. Hey, I always have that gut feeling that someday they're all going to look like this. Well, we're getting closer to that dream every day. The last 4 or 5 planes really have looked pretty nice. And one of the secrets to getting this silver to sand out, at least the way I like it, is always leave it by a heating vent, keep it warm, let it dry extra days before you actually do the sanding. The longer you can, if you're not in a rush, I mean, if you're living in a part of the country where you don't have to work in the winter, you can build in the summer, put it away, put it to dry for, a week or so. 2 weeks, 3 weeks. In our case, the longer it dries up here, and you can see where the heating vent is, the longer it dries. In this cold weather, when the heat is on almost 3/4 of the time, it just sands out so much easier this way. Now, when I do the wing, I really have to dedicate a giant block of time because I like to start it and finish it if possible. And I don't know how many times, I've started it and halfway through it I had company come over or, something else that I really do like to start early in the morning and by tonight have this done. Every time I look at it. Now, there's going to be a lot of little flaws because, again, what I'm trying to do, see, you would have almost no flaws if you were willing to just put on extra coats. Just put 6 coats of clear instead of 3 or 4, and just put on 5 coats of filler, and there'll be no flaws. That's what happens when people do nitrate bases and they don't have any trouble. It means that they've probably left a lot of the butyrate on there, or the primer or whatever, not gone down into the nitrate. Well, that wouldn't work for me because the finish is so thin. When I'm done, that finish is, I don't even know if you can measure it, it's so thin. I've peeled pieces of that paint off and it's really thin. Things I do that from this point on, pad the table with some blankets, some old towels, anything you have in stock that you can use to pad it. And I've been the most guilty person I know of when it comes to, I'd get to this point and all of a sudden I have a fingernail in it, a belt buckle, a button, so, hey, come on, get off it. Bird loves M600 for some reason. Anyway, the more padding you can put on a table, we used to have this real nice bed pad. I'm not sure where it went. But another thing too is after every time I sand or dust, I either shake the towels out, or at the end of the day, just throw them in a washing machine. Then when I come down in the morning, throw them in the dryer, and you've got nice, fresh, new stuff, especially with M600. Now, working off of that padded table guarantees that I'll still have a dent in this thing somewhere when I'm done. At least with that, we'll have a fighting chance of not having a lot of dents in them. Here's what I'm looking for. This is a dry spot. I know I'm going to have to be careful there. As I look on each blade, there's a little speck that came, so a little spit, the gun spit there. I kind of rub my finger even through the rubber glove around the edges of everything. Make sure I don't have any sharp edges, and if I do, avoid them like the plague. Just keep painting over them. Every time I shoot silver, I go back over this, just over the edges, 4, 5, 6 In fact, you can even see how much extra paint is there, I think, through the video. Dry spot up here where we started almost to come through. This area will be covered inside the body. I'm not going to bother with that. This is where I put my finger through. That's going to need a little dressing. Try to identify what I need to look for on the first shot. Dry spot out here. Other than that, it's just now going to be a matter of hours of sanding. I want to wind up with this amount of material on. No less, no more. I want to go here really carefully. As soon as I see that black line coming through, I know I really can't go a lot further. And of course, right about now, you got to be hoping you went to church and that you're not going to go through as few bays as possible. Let's hope for none. Now, I'm not looking really on the silk span areas to do anything but just get them nice and smooth. And if I show one on camera, I think you can figure out, just repeat that. I think there's 56 open bays or 72 or something. But as soon as I see that coming through, I know I can't go a whole lot further. Another thing a lot of people don't understand about, they say, oh yeah, well, this guy's finish comes out a lot lighter than this one. Well, in the case of, it's not really relevant to how much material you put on if you sand a lot of it off. If you put a quart of silver on and you sand a quart off, and all you wind up with are those little dots, well then it's fine, but... And this is just time and labor intensive to get each bay. I'm going around the edges so carefully. Now, I've tried using steel wool. I'm not as comfortable with 4-0 steel wool. A lot of people have had good luck. And if you try it, I would suggest try it on the bottom, not on the top. Okay, now here's the two telltale signs. We've got a little bit of silver around the edges, that's fine, but right here I'm getting a little, that's getting close. That black area is where I've gone through, and some of that silver is working its way, and that's kind of a little sharp spot. So this means we're gonna basically quit. On solid wood areas, of course, it's a whole lot less labor intensive. The part of it that's hard to understand is that you're doing three things at the same time here. Plane is getting a nicer finish, it's getting lighter, all at the same time. And in effect, you're making a plane that, for the rest of your life, you know, for like tradition, for instance, every time you look at it for the next, how long it lasts, you'll see your handiwork. You can see on the solid wood parts how quickly that comes right down. We just want to leave, see the little dots? And when the whole plane looks like, the whole wing looks like this, we'll be ready for that last coat of silver. And we'll probably have to wait. There's a hard spot up here too I need to work on. There was right here, there's a place where the gun spit, but you can feel it. You can feel it right through the rubber gloves, and that's the look that we're looking for. And once you know what that looks like, and you've got kind of an idea, then you know it's just a question of doing it over and over and over again. Just labor intensive. Kind of about halfway through one side of the ring. I just wanted to pick out some of the things I look for. I always look for the joint between the cap strip and this to be perfect. See, this one could use a little more dressing off. But I always look for that little black line that's a telltale sign that you're getting close to being through the silk span. And that's when you want to stop. Now, as awful as this looks, and keep in mind, every time you do silver, you're going to want to, oh man, that looks terrible. When it's finished, this will look perfect. You won't see any of these. Again, this side I have to do the open bays on. There's a spot here where the silk span joint is just not perfect. I'm just going to let that go and put some more silver in there. Again, I want to make sure all these little areas are as well defined as I can get, because in the final analysis, that's what you're looking for. See, here's one here I even missed. There's one there. Needs a little more. That could use a little more. Well, I'm trying never to sand that edge. But yeah, I'm sanding in here and sanding the cap strip, but never getting in that corner. Anyway, from this point on, it's just a question of labor. I keep saying that, but it really is just a question of labor. Tips that I think will help if you're really going to try to put that ultimate finish on a plane. One of the things is, and I see every year I try to think about, did I leave anything out? Because of the new people that have joined us and they may not understand. M600 is a degreasing agent, sickens M600. I realize I didn't put this on the video before. And we use it with a lot of fans going and doors open, and that's why we're freezing. You notice I have a nice warm flannel shirt on because it's cold in here. Now the cold also helps the fact that the degreasing agent doesn't evaporate as quickly as it would. If you were down in Houston there with Bill Rutherford, you may evaporate in about 30 seconds. I use it in a spray bottle. You can buy the bottle from Consolidated. A Windex bottle will, in fact, let me get the number on here because every year somebody calls up with the number. 216-425-3900. Consolidated Plastics sells the bottle. Sickens M600 is usually available in a local body shop. Some of the other substitutes that I haven't found work even close as well. I don't like using soapy water. If water gets down into the wood, you're a dead man. Everything swells up. It also stays liquid for way too long. Now you see, if I was to just leave this in 30 seconds, this is going to be gone. So the other trick is maybe even dip the amount of one bay and wipe that up. Because what you're doing is the M600 is taking the silver paint, the silver filler, using it as a carrier, so we're removing it. Now I want to start with, if you try to do a whole wing in one panel, and I've even tried to do that with foam wings and with, actually I tried it with the carbon wing even, not good. Any area bigger than one open bay is really going to be kind of a problem because the material starts evaporating. And what happens now, you'll actually feel, as the material starts to evaporate, it gets thicker and thicker. The viscosity goes up. And what happens is now it's starting to get like, draggy. As soon as it's draggy, your choices are you can add some more M600, in this case that, because we still want to sand. But you don't want to sand it dry. If you sand it dry, usually one or two pieces of sandpaper will sand out the whole plane. This size, too. If you're using up sandpaper and it's kind of wearing out, it's probably because you're sanding too dry. And it isn't like the objective is to save the sandpaper. The objective is to make it as I don't know if the word pleasant is right. Bearable is the right word. Anyway, some of these little tips I'm sure will help. If this is the first time you're doing it, you're probably going to want to do the bottom first. Look at this. Look at this. He's eating my sandpaper as we speak. I don't know if you can see him. He's eating sandpaper. Anyway, one tip. Never adopt a baby bird. Boy, that's a good tip. He'll eat you out of house and home. Hard to believe, but he's got my sandpaper. He has my sandpaper. You believe this? Now, if I could only train him to sand. Hey, look, he steals my sandpaper. He knocks my M600 over. Yeah, that's it. Sandpaper's good for you. That's what most orchard orioles eat. Sandpaper for lunch. Now, any time I get through the halfway point, and that's usually one side of a wing, this whole other side has to be done. I always feel like, now I'm on the downhill side of this. I don't know what there is about being on the downhill side. It always seems like the other side is easier to do, but I don't know if you feel the same way too. Anyway, I know that every minute of this time that I spend is going to pay in that final finish. Before we go out to paint, and I always emphasize, don't use the dirty rag that you just wiped up the silver with. Get some clean paper towels on there. Get the last of the fingerprints, and what usually happens is this flips over, and some of it drains down on the other side. So you want to get, at this point in time, what I'm going to do is make up some decanted silver. What decanted means, I'm going to pour off the top of the silver without stirring it. And then once it's, come on. I'm going to decant in 1 minute. What I'm going to do with that mix will in essence have a little bit of extra pigment in it. And it looks like we're going to get, not that we're lucky or anything, but it looks like we have, it's up above freezing. I think it's about 35 degrees out there. In fact, I saw some snow melt. So we're going to try to get a coat of silver on this. With so many projects going on in the shop at the same time, that time management thing I always talk about becomes more and more important. Every time I think there's a possibility, and a lot of times I'm really optimistic, there's a chance this will be my last or next to last coat of silver. I want to decant the paint. I've written this up many times, but I don't think I've really shown it. This is a can of Brodax silver, and what I want to do is, without shaking it, and you can see it's not shaking, I just want to pour off roughly half. Doesn't have to be more than that, maybe a little more. Now I have the extra pigment that's down in the bottom of this, and I can feel it. In essence, what I'm doing is making paint that has a little more than normal pigment, a third more. Because what I'm trying to do is get this coat of paint on. Remember that thing I talked about, the Barbell Effect? That's so important, at least on the tail and out at the wingtips, that the extremities of the plane are light. Now, because I have roughly half, and I can always add more thinner, this is now decanted silver. What it means is it has a little bit more than the average amount of pigment in it. And once it's stirred up, I'll be ready to spray this. I'll do a little test. I'd like to get it to spray at about 20 pounds a square inch. The thing is, you can decant this. You decant any color, so it'll cover a little better. But if you're going to get to a point, at some point in time, if you overdo this, you're going to lose some of your chemical adhesion. So we're kind of on the conservative side here. Once I see I'm not picking up any of the pigment, I always put a little nut or a screw or something into the spray gun. The reason for that is you need to shake silver constantly as you're painting it. Now I just need to adjust this with thinner until I get a nice spray pattern at about 20 pounds. My initial test is showing, see the orange peel, how thick it is? And it's telling me that what I need to do is put a little more thinner in the paint to paint in this cold temperature. You really don't want to have that orange peel. I'd like to have that flow out a lot better. Now my edge thinner, I have that little nut, like a prop nut. In the spray gun you can hear it, and it tends to keep the extra silver, any metallic color, keeps it in suspension, and I'll do another test. Now, at some point in time, you can't make the paint a whole lot thinner. You're always fighting this. When a temperature is cold like this, it's always a problem. In warmer weather, just go with 50-50 or 60 thinner, 40 paint. But in this cold weather, you always have to do, and notice I'm testing all the little parts. Who cares if I have an extra little coat of silver on a tip weight box? Doesn't even matter. We are going to try to get some of this painting done. even though this is not the ideal conditions. Now, what I'm looking for is relatively good coverage and having the paint lay down. And believe me, it's not a warm day in Houston over here. Now what I always do is when I have the wire, put my thumb on the edge, get the last little bit. Now it really is a big advantage to be spraying in some bright sun like this. This is really nice. What's nice about this is I can really see any spots I've really missed. Now even this piece, now I can get the edge. Always a little bit on the edges. What I can see with this is though, let's see if I can get this up close. It's still a little bit on the thick side, so I can go put a little more thinner. Notice I'm doing all the small parts first. Just a little on the thick side. Fine tune it on all the small parts, and this is to adapt to this cold weather. We've gotten close to the pattern that we want here. Again, cold weather is always a challenge to get it to lay out right. That's real close to what we're looking for right there. Always a lot of extra on the edges. Great day to make a snowman. Like a typhoon-shaped snowman here. Because it's decanted, this is going on very, very thin. I can guarantee you, if we do sand this out, we will not have a lot to sand out. Plus this acts as a blocker coat. Always best, I think, to save the wing to last. Just in case you need to make some little adjustments somewhere in the program. Always extra on the hinge lines, extra on the edges. You know the leading edge is going to take a beating. And again, because it's decanted, any paint that's decanted is going to cover like magic. Just going to go. Again, I'm being real careful because of that thing called the Barbell Effect. I've explained that, gone over it in my mind many times. Done the same test over and over thinking, is that really that critical? And it is. And it's one of the things some people, in building a plane, the plane might be relatively light, but the extremities are heavy. Because we're out here alone, this is a little, I'm trying to use the sun. I don't know if you can see this. And I'll do one panel here on camera to show what I was talking about. I always get an extra on those cap strips, those edges. I can do it as I'm actually laying on a coat of paint. That's one of the good secrets to getting it relatively nice. Now I can fill in the bays. I don't know why, but I really like the way these tips came out. I'm thinking that's going to look nice in the final plane. You can see I threw all that Mickey Mousing around with the thinner to get it just right. It looks like we're very close. One of the real good secrets to keeping a finish nice. Keeping it working like now. I'm going around. Anytime I see a dry spot, I'm hitting it extra. I see some dry spots up on the leading edge here. Dry spot right there, in fact. Now, there's still plenty of little spots I need to fix on here. But the best thing is to put it up by the heating vent for at least 1 day, maybe 2 days, and we'll work on something else while we're waiting for this to dry. When I got down here, I always reach for this product after a day of shooting silver. It's 3M Putty 05960. Can be mixed with a little bit of thinner if necessary. And I always look at the parts I painted the day before, because now I need to make this commitment. Are we really going to shoot for the moon here, or are we just going to, jump off a cliff? Well, there's still a lot of little spots on here that I'm not happy with. I've hit some with sandpaper. I've looked at other ones. These are very tiny imperfections that almost never you'd see in a final finish, but I always feel that it's easier to work on them right now. So what I'm going to do in the next 10-15 minutes, I'm going to take each part, hold it up to the light very carefully, look for any little spot that I'm not happy with, mix me up just a little bit of this with a little bit of Brodak thinner, and work on getting all of the little spots that I think could be improved on. This is the best material. This is the one that I've been happiest with. I don't like the red stuff. And this seems to have a better dry-in time. 05960. Thing you don't ever want to do with this is try to build a fillet or build something thicker than a piece of paper. This is only for cosmetic repairs. Again, this material is only for filling little tiny imperfections, little pinholes. You can't trowel on 1/8 of an inch of this like you can fiberglass. Now, usually any kind of a spatula, a razor blade is good. I always try, you can see this one's already been used since we use these all the time in the shop. I try to get them clean before I go ahead with any of these little spot repairs. Because this is the part where it starts to get where you have to really, it just gets more and more fanatical to get everything perfect before you go to the paint finish. Now you can see on the tail, just as an example, there was a little spot up here I wasn't happy with. There's a little dry spot right here. Let's see if we can... that won't come out in the final finish, but I'll know it's there. Then a couple of spots here where the tissue wasn't stuck down as well as it could be. What I did, I put a bunch of little pinholes in there, just hit it with some thin CA. What you see here is thin CA going over those little... Anytime you see a little bubble, when you're spraying silver and you see a little bubble, take a little pin and or the tip of a number 11 blade, put 1,000 little holes, put some thin CA and wipe it with a paper towel. Now that it's down thick, now you have a chance of fixing it. But first you got to bond that silk span down. Little spot that I'm going to, you see, this is the spot I'm trying to fix. I want to get all around it, sand it with some 320 or 400 just to rough it up. This is what the silver does. See, this is what the gray primer didn't do. If I had painted this gray, I'd never even see these spots. Now, a lot of people think, well, why not paint it gray? You don't see that. Well, yeah, but then you don't get it fixed. And now if in the final coat, when you put the clear on and buff it, you'll see little imperfections. Well, I don't want to see them. I want it to be as good as it can be in the silver, and that's one of the keys to having year after year of front row finishes. Now, it's got to be rough like this, best if it's rough like this before you put the putty on. Everybody likes the way I say putty. Putty. If anybody can guess what I eat for breakfast, they win a free trip to Bill Rutherford's house for the weekend. Anyway, here's a problem you have with this. If you don't leave the cap on in a matter of an hour, you've got a skin on there. If this gets a little too thick for your own personal use, you can put a few drops of Brodak thinner in there. I like to just get the trowel ready. Thin as possible. Let it dry. It'll dry real quick, but if you let it dry an hour or so, even better. Sands very easily, especially wet. Now what I'm going to do, see I got another spot here, I'm going to go go around this whole area and just pick out spots that I'm not happy with on all of the silver parts. Because the fussier I am now, it's like putting a straight foundation on a house. Every minute that you spend right now, you're saving time later on. Big time, too, because all these little things show up after you have the clear on, and then it's really hard to fix them. Now, the other part of this is this, if you have a heating vent, put it up by the heating vent. But it should dry at least an hour or so. And we'll come back to this once all the green putty is dry. Putty. Why don't they, I wonder if you look in a dictionary, if you look up the word putty. Starts to dry out as you're working with it. I mean, you only need a few drops of this. You can kind of keep it soft. You don't want it too liquidy, but you don't want it to dry out either. Or you can just keep squeezing new stuff out of the tube. Depends how much money you have. Depends if you were born wealthy or born poor. When you're born poor, you'll put thinner in it. Working on this area where I had that, put my finger through. A couple little spots. And again, this is up to, it's in the eye of the beholder. You can never be too fussy, in my opinion. Just the more you pick away at this, the better it'll be in the final analysis. That drying up there by the heating vent for a couple hours, and we'll come back and work on this, get this sanded out. Now I'm trying to just see here. This has been drying for a while. The trick is to get a nice feather edge without going down through into any further than we have to. That looks like about it. This material usually sands real easy. Oh, here we go. Look at this. Success on the first shot. You can see now how that's filled in. You really can't even feel that. I want a spot like this, a little bit bigger spot. I prefer sanding it with M600. Let's see how this is coming out. I don't find sanding it with a block to be real helpful at this point because everything is kind of thin at this point, and you're not really going to change the shape. What I'm interested in most of all is the feather edging. The Sickens M600 helps degrease it. And of course, once this is sanded out, we'll get another coat of silver on it and repeat this process as many times as necessary. Now the feather edging is coming out nice, but I still have I'm just not happy I have too much material on there. .600 is a little bit better, I think, than 400. You don't tend to go down into the material around it as easily. And anybody that was a teenage kid like I was and you had a bunch of $50 cars, first thing you had to do is replace a few fenders, get out about 6 cans of Bondo, and try to make them look good. And they never did, of course. So then you'd prime them so nobody'd know how bad your bodywork was and leave them in prime. What I'm trying to do is just get rid of all the extra material here before I respray this. Now we're down there. So, I don't want to go any further than this. It's of no value if you go down into the substrate. Now I just need to touch this up. Can take this outside and spray it. Different for this area or the bottom. I want to get all of these little touch-up areas sanded, and then I just need to recoat just this area with the silver, and then get a look at if we're coming up on that we'll be satisfied with this. Now you can really see when you get 2 or 3 coats of this on, you can really see the little imperfections. And again, this is what the silver does for you. It lets you see those little imperfections that normally your naked eye would miss. And what I'm going to do now that I know I have most of the imperfections, or I wouldn't say all of them, but most of them, I'm going to sand the whole part. And this will be, let's hope, that final coat of silver. But sure, you could skip some of these steps, but I think you only get, with any finishing thing, you get exactly what you pay for. Now these are the areas where we had the bad spots. And we're going to do the whole ring, the whole stab, and then hope. These are our bad spots coming right through. But when they're done, one more coat of silver, this should be relatively nice.
I wonder what it'd be like.
What am I going to do?
Just get a little look at what we're trying to do here. You see there's still little low spots there in the little areas that we've repaired. And sure, you could go with this, but when this is done one more final time, you can even feel how smooth it's getting right now. All that extra work in the final analysis, once that has the last coat of silver, well worth it. And thanks for joining us. I hope you've gotten some good ideas how to get the silver on your next plane to be perfect. And then we'll see you on the next video. Sure, peeps can answer the phone, no problem at all. How about you get you to talk to customers?